of course, the movie's filled with memorable scenes that I've remembered, since I was a kid, from something as obvious as the eyeball,
Yeah, jumps on it. Yeah.
yeah, or another obvious one, swallow your soul, swallow this.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Swallow this.
Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Arrow on the Head Show. Lance Belcheck, John Fallon, buddy. It's been a week. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. FYI, I'm not wearing sunglasses because I'm an asshole. I'm wearing it because I'm outside enjoying fresh air, but I got sun in my eyes, so that's why I'm wearing sunglasses.
I wouldn't hold it against you if you want to wear sunglasses. Yeah, live your life. Protect your eyes, man. It's like the most important part.
It's bright, It's bright. You have a good Easter weekend?
Yeah, me and the missus went and saw, this might be weird for you, I don't know. Went and saw Jesus Christ Superstar at the theater because I have no family out here. So it was just me and her drinking and rocking out to some soul. What about you? I'm assuming you did something a little more traditional then.
Yeah, and went to church and big dinner, family, lots of love. So typical. Before we dive into what I consider probably one of the best horror sequels ever made, if I dare say so myself, what's on the menu in terms of beverages?
That's as easy. We made some sangria to save a little money last week, and I have some left over.
Nice.
Now, I try to always space out my booze. So, homemade sangria. John, what about you, buddy?
Not as fancy pants as you. Just Jack Daniels on ice. That's it. That's all.
Yeah. Works. Yeah. Okay.
Gets a job done. So, as Lance just said, we're going to talk about Sam Raimi's 1987 Evil Dead 2. But before then, I'd like to offer a cheers to all of you. And cheers to you, Lancey boy. Let's get cracking. Groove it.
Hello, my friends! Hey!
Well, obviously with Evil Dead Rise coming in about a week or two, I thought it'd be a good idea to kind of, start with a classic and a movie that is absolutely important to my upbringing in horror and something that I've loved for as long as I could. I got to be honest, I'm a little nervous because there's so much been said about this already. I don't know what I could bring to the conversation besides a big smile and a lot of heart, but I love it, man, and I'm glad that we're digging into Bruce Campbell's magnum opus.
Magnum opus. Well, one thing that's interesting about Evil Dead 2 is that it really got made because of Stephen King. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I wrote it down. I knew it. It's so funny. Not as much. I knew the first one because he had the quote, and that's what did it. I didn't know that he basically forced financing on this. I think that's awesome.
He went to Dino De Laurentiis, who of course produced Conan the Barbarian and King Kong, the 70s version, whatever. A huge producer, Red Sonja. And he said, dude, you got to do this guy's movie. You got to do the fucking movie. So Laurentiis got on board. Then they got, I think, a couple of private investors as well on board. And that all stemmed from the fact that King loved the original so much that he thought, this dude's going to go places. I got to support this guy's vision. And funnily enough, when De Laurentiis had to distribute the film, even though they used like green blood and stuff like that to try to not get an X rating, they still got an X rating. And DEG, De Laurentiis' company, they were not allowed to distribute an unrated movie. So they created, I'm sure you remember it from the opening, this Rosebud company. So that they could release the movie uncensored on the big screen. And funnily enough, Rosebud, here we go. I'm on fire now. Rosebud is, of course, a line uttered in Orson Welles' the fuck was it called?
Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And the sound that you hear when the Evil Dead, like the POV shot, of the spirit, going around, is a mix of Orson Welles' voice and Sam Raimi's voice.
There's a question I have for you.
Hmm.
I know that you have told me in, I think, previous episodes, if not drinking, together when we meet, that number one is really tied to your sort of building blocks of the horror genre.
I flip-flop.
Okay, well, I was going to ask you, like, where were you when you saw this, age and stuff, and sort of where's it sit now that you're late in your career? You're more mature. You've lived a more of a authentic life. I'm always curious that where it started and where it ends, or at least where it is now in a life like.
You're going deep today, bro. You're going deep.
So there's no sun, so I get a lot. I get real
existential.
Really, yeah, exactly. It's like, why were you, John?
I don't know, dude. I'm doing my best. I'm here talking about horror movies, so I guess that's one of the reasons I'm here. I'm here to, anyways. Well, I think, as I've told you before, the original The Evil Dead was the first horror movie I ever saw. Yeah. So it really marked me, and it scared the shit out of me. When I was younger, I carried that with me. So by the time I saw part two, which is, part one is really straightforward. Even the Ash character is not like, here he kind of evolves into a superhero to some degree, from in the first one, he's a regular dude. In the second one, he's a regular dude, but the more we progress, the more, there's more humor, more slapstick. And then next thing you know, chainsaw, groovy, all that shit. So for a long time, I liked Evil Dead 1 more than 2. But today, now, as I'm more seasoned and life has whooped me stupid so many fucking times, I prefer 2 to 1, because 1 is actually very dated today. If you watch it today, like, you feel the age of the film. But 2 still holds up really solid, even by today's standards. Rewatching it recently for this episode, I hadn't watched it in a while. I realized just how fucking ambitious, unique, novel, bold, crazy that fucking movie is. I mean that on every echelon. And yes, I just wanted to use the word echelon. So the show's over. Thank you, boys and girls.
Solid word.
Exactly. On every echelon, from, that's the kinetic camera work to Bruce Campbell. I don't think his performance gets enough respect. Maybe people have forgotten about it because they haven't watched the movie in a while. My God, this guy's like a Buster Keaton of horror, a Chaplin of horror. The gags he does by himself, with the hand that's possessed, the plates, or at some point there's hands that come out of a window and grab his head, and it's banging his head, but it's obvious he's in complete control. He's banging his own fucking head against the thing. That's like some solid physical, comical humor. I appreciate 2 much more than 1 at this point in my life.
I saw these out of order. I actually, when I was a very little kid, me and my friend, his dad took us, I think his birthday, to like play arcade games in a local mall. And he took us to see Army Darkness. I never forget. I think it's my first R-rated movie. But as a kid, I didn't know there was more. I'll never forget. I remember thinking, even at a little age, like, what a weird movie. It seemed to cram in quite a bit. So I saw 2, and I had this still. It's a tin case DVD. They made, I think, 50,000 limited edition, real dorky stuff. I will have this for the rest of my life. I think Evil Dead 2 is what kind of cemented my love for the series. It's funny because this watch, I was looking at different things. I knew the story, so I was looking more at performances and kind of like more technical stuff, just because I was curious. And I wrote down specifically that his movements, everything. Even I wrote down when he's shaking the girl at the end, and he says specifically like I'm okay. He just, his brow sits so high up.
I'm all right.
And he has these looks, but he has these embellished expressions, his movements. He did something that I don't know why I've never caught, at least in terms of being funny. But after he gets possessed and the house has those like little eyes that come out and it's like, join us.
Yeah.
He like raises his brow. He looks all suspicious, looks at the car, looks at the fucking house, looks back at the car, and then it hard cuts the car driving away. I was like, that performance. So if it wasn't him, if you asked me to do it, I would look, and leave. But as he looks, raises his brow, looks back, looks more suspicious, his face tightens up, and I'm like, okay, that's why Bruce Campbell is still to this day signing autographs, running in conventions, and honestly the coolest guy in the world, because something as simple as that, man. And I noticed a lot of that from the cast and crew. I didn't realize how embellished some things were. Not in terms of the story. Of course, I mean, it's like Three Stooges, but like I said, these little sort of acting bits. And I was like, man, I prefer straight horror if you ask me personally, but I think this is better 100% than the first one because of what you said. The first one is a great movie that to me is made by a bunch of friends trying to make a movie, and I love it for that reason.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a synergy between Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell. So I've had that word in my back pocket since we started the show, bro. So I had to fucking drop it sometime. So I found an opening. Here I am. In terms of Campbell's performance being in jail with Raimi's directing style. So they come together beautifully and they both support each other beautifully. And it's one of the reasons that why it's so special. One of the reasons. Of course, the movie's filled with memorable scenes that I've remembered, since I was a kid, from something as obvious as the eyeball,
jumps on it.
Yeah, or another obvious one, swallow your soul, swallow this. Boom. Two less obvious ones. For some fucked up reason, I've always remembered that blonde dude that gets possessed and he eats the chick's hair. That always
it sucks in his mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, that always marked me. I'm like, you don't see that every day, What else? I mean, Henrietta, of course, somebody in my fruit cellar. The reveal, in the first film, we always see the demon, the entity, whatever you want to call it, through, the POV shots. But here they finally revealed it.
I love it. It's like a giant face. It was cool.
Big fat fucking head. Which actually, if I remember correctly, when they shot the movie, the head was too heavy. So after they wrapped, they just dumped it in the woods. Like that big giant
They left it, right? I know that because they didn't know where it was for years. Yeah.
They left it, and then it wound up like in a haunted house somewhere or something. So somebody dragged it out of the woods and
great find,
used it.
Man. Can you imagine?
I'd kill to have that in my apartment. That big fucking head. Yeah. I mean, what else? What else can we say? I mean, there's so much imagination in the movie. For even the opening. I'm sure you're aware, and you guys and dolls are aware. They kind of did the recap of the first one. They couldn't get the rights to the footage of the first one, so they had to reshoot the basic idea of it to give people that were seeing part two that didn't see part one a frame of reference as to, how Hash got there and everything. But the beauty that came out of that is that we kind of had a new opening that's different from, Evil Dead 1.
Yeah.
And I loved... Yeah, sorry. I'm going to keep going.
Oh, yeah.
And I love the bit when the girlfriend gets her head cut off or whatever, he buries her, and then she comes out and starts dancing, like ballet dancing and with her head and shit like that. That's freaky shit.
She jumps
it's
and disappears.
Yeah. And then she shows up, it's just shit like that. That moment, for some reason, for me, was very Tim Burton-ish, even though they came before Tim Burton.
I could see that a lot.
Kind of like,
it's like gothic and haunting, but it's kind of pretty. I'll describe it,
Yeah, playful. Yeah.
This whole movie is full of, I think, many iconic moments. Not saying there's not big ones, but just the stuff I was writing down. There's a scene when the sun goes down, and it's clearly like a composited shot because the sun is the size of the whole screen. It's going down to the side, and pan over, and Ash is turning and freaking out. Just something like that. It's like fucking Sam Raimi. That's why everything this man does is worse. It has a little bit of imagination, man. Ash, when he's listening for his hand, he's making the movements.
Yeah.
I love this since I was a kid. It just focuses only on his ear, and it moves slightly, and he gets the shot in. Something like that.
Yeah.
An air shot. What about the bridge is destroyed and has that wide? I think it's a map, but it's a really weird, awkward. It looks really weird, especially in 4K when it's wide and the pillars are curled up, and it's like, no, it's so bizarre. The whole entire movie is just bizarre shot after bizarre shot. There's a cool L cut, man. When Bobby Joe's getting dragged and the branches are going into her face, kind of reminded me almost of Nightmare on Elm Street. Is it 5 with a bike or 4? I forget.
Yeah, 5.
It's going to skin. I had that kind of the thing going. I'm not saying it's the first, but I always just think of that. And it's like zooming up, and you hear the hits a tree, and as it hits a tree, the pages,
the frame, Yeah.
Ah!
Blind.
Like, Robert, man, yeah, you're doing well.
That's awesome, dude.
This entire movie is just that and that and that. And I could have wrote like 3 pages of stuff. And again, stuff, a lot of it I've known, but just I was thinking at this age, okay, somebody just gives you money and a camera. How do you do it? And I know obviously he made a movie. This is obviously after Evil Dead, so he's learned a little, but just in terms of technical prowess, the man has an eye that I would kill for.
He did Evil Dead 2 after Crime Wave, if I remember correctly. And the reason he went back to Evil Dead was because Crime Wave tanked. Yeah. So actually, you're speaking about all these iconic, moments, memorable moments. One bit that always killed me is the bit. It's pretty much before like everybody comes and crashes the party, because for the at least half of the movie, it's the Ash show.
Yes.
It's him alone dealing with shit, which personally, and I'll get into my dislikes sooner than later, but personally, it's my favorite bit of the entire movie, when Ash is alone dealing with shit. Yes, that's what I was going to talk about. When the whole room goes nuts. First of all, I think it's a moose or a deer.
Yeah, turns its head.
That always freaked me out. That freaked me out as a kid, watching it as a quote-unquote grown-up. It still freaked me out. But then, you have that beautiful wide shot, and there's that little lamp, which I always thought was the cutest fucking thing ever. It bends, and he bends with it, and then he stops, and then it stops, and he's like, losing his fucking beans like me before a cup of coffee. So like negatives, they're not really big negatives, really, but when the four, Baba Joe, the hillbilly dude, blonde dude, and the chick show up, it kind of breaks the rhythm the movie was having. With that said, it would have been hard to sustain that rhythm with just one guy in a house the whole movie, but I was really more interested in Ash versus the Evil Dead than Ash and the Four Stooges coming in. I thought the 4 characters were fairly unlikable. Their dialogue was hokey at times, especially Baba Joe and the hillbilly dude, which, by the way, there's no fucking way the hillbilly dude is
No, okay. Hold on, quick pause.
Baba Joe.
I wrote down here because for some reason I never realized she is super cute, like super cute. I'm a brown-eyed girl, I'm more of a Van guy over here, but I was like, oh my god, what a fucking beautiful eyes, what a cute little girl, and I was just like, he wouldn't get her. So I had a little moment of just I got real angry. I was like, fucking. Unless
it's his sister and it's that whole inbred thing, that did cross my mind, or. Are they related?
But did he get all the fucking inbred genes? Because she was gorgeous and he has like missing teeth, he's balding, he's overweight. I mean, if it's a sister, then I really feel bad for the genetic lottery that he lost.
Yeah, you think. So and the movie kind of slows down. And it was, it was bound to happen. Again, it's really hard to sustain. When you start strong, like Evil Dead 2 does. Dude, Evil Dead 2, like the first 45 minutes, it never stops. It's one thing after another, after another, after another, after another. It's like pedal to the fucking floor. But then the 4 come and it slows down. And then it starts taking the movie in 2 different directions. Which is fine, I guess. Just in my perfect world, if there would have been a way to pull off just Ash for $1.50, that would have been nice. But like I said, it's a minor qualm. But yeah, that's pretty much my only qualm, really. Some of the stop motion, I guess.
It's
it still works, but even back then, the Henrietta, when she morphs into like the claymation Henrietta, I was kind of like, the giraffe thing was kind of like, But really, these are nitpicks. I'd still give the movie a fucking 10 on 10. So, what about you? Any peeves with it, or things that didn't go down as smoothly?
Something that I noticed on this last rewatch, and maybe just because I try to be more analytical when I watch stuff, just because obviously you may do this, and for my other job, I realized, because I always said it's quasi remaking a sequel. I know people are like, that's not, it's a recap, but it's like, well, they didn't fucking in any way make it a recap, let you know it's a recap. So I always hate that argument. It's like, if that's their intention, they actually hit it. So I think that it's a quasi remake and a sequel. That being said, to some degree, it remakes the first movie. It's a quasi remakes it in the first 4 minutes. My issue though is actually watching it this time. I was like, I realized how awkward, rushed the recap is, because it's not presented as a recap. It's presented as start the story where he's driving and stuff like that. I just realized that between the time it gets to the cabin and cuts off her head, it's been a couple minutes, and I know it's not that in real life. but I almost felt like Ash went to murder a lot quicker in this one than I probably would have liked. I almost wish they extended the recap an extra 10, 12 minutes and kind of let it breathe just a little bit. I know it's a weird qualm to have, but if we're just looking at it logistically, I think it was a bit rushed. I remember thinking he got off his girlfriend's head real quick. And because of that, I'm able to forgive rushing like this, some gaudy effects. Ash going from like kind of timid to like the coolest guy in the world real fucking quick. But, that's what I want. I mean, the reason why I prefer this movie or the first is because Ash is a bitch in the first one.
Is he ever?
In this one, it's like, I liked it. Halfway through, it's like, tool shed.
That's a
goes and makes it. I was like, that's
There's a funny story about that line, because that line, when they shot the film and they got into post, that line was kind of like messy, noisy. So they brought in
ADR. That's why it's so weird sounding.
Yeah, they brought in Bruce for ADR, and there's a surrealistic vibe for it. It kind of feels off a little bit because it's ADR.
Work shed.
But when Kurt Russell did Escape from LA with Bruce Campbell,
I heard about this. Yeah.
Yeah, the first thing he said to Bruce Campbell on set, "Can you say tool shed?" Can you say tool shed?
There's a shitload of stuff like that. And so we're like, we could actually pick on it, but I don't really care. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to say this with you. It's a 10 out of 10. As a whole, it's interesting. It's weird. The direction is gorgeous. The acting is all over the place. But Bruce Campbell, like you said, in his Buster Keaton-esque performance, steals the show. He's handsome.
He's jacked too. He's jacked in this one.
When they ripped his shirt, he's all, because even in Army of Darkness, he's in great shape too.
Hey, he was. I read he was training, because it's such a physical role.
That makes sense.
That they hired a bodybuilder to train him. So they like the set, if I remember correctly, I think was
built in a gym, right?
In a gym of a school, right?
Yeah, somewhere in South Carolina.
I think so.
Or wherever.
Exactly. It was South Carolina. So, but they made a gym for him. So by the time that shirt got ripped, he was ripped.
So fucking big.
Ripped as fuck. Exactly. And look, we didn't know what was going to happen until it happened. But Evil Dead 2 is really the birth of Ash.
Yes.
As we know him today, which followed through in Army of Darkness and then followed through in Ash versus Evil Dead. So Evil Dead 2 was the beginning of the pop culture icon that Ash became.
Which is, I think, why this movie's always stuck with me. Because, dude, when I was a kid, I mean, as an adult, he's cool. But as a kid, dude, this is like the coolest guy in the world. He's half his shirt's open. He has a chainsaw, shotgun.
Yeah.
He's quipping lines, He's shaking people and they're not listening because he's okay. Everything about it. It's great. No, it's...
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, that's why my love for Evil Dead 1 is actually, I kind of separate it because it doesn't truly fit with Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, and the TV show.
I agree. No, Evil Dead 1 is a beast on its own. And, but yeah, they ran with it. They ran with the character. I mean, I'd be interested to know how the Ash character came to grow this much between first and the second in terms of creatively. Like, was it Sam Raimi saying, I want to make this guy a one-liner spewing superhero type of guy? Was it Bruce Campbell's input in the role? Hey, you want me to do part 2, dude? We got to do something more, man, because, I'm not going to be the bitch in the first one. I mean, I would love to know how that, I think it's most likely a mix of the two, Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, to get their creative juices flowing. Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, creative juices come together. Evil Dead 2, Ash. That's what I think. But it'd be nice to know for a fact.
As much as the stuff as I've seen and looked up and read, I've never heard anything of that discussed. So I would love to know. But I think in the end of the day, it's both. It's probably like, how do we make it more interesting? Campbell wants a bigger role. And honestly, good, because that's why it's persevered, is because Ash is such an iconic character. He's a loudmouth braggart.
Yeah, but that really comes through in part 3 in Army of Darkness.
Sure, but like in middle part 2 on, though, I think is the birth of it. Part 3 is peak Ash. And we'll talk about Army of Darkness, but that's why, if you're asking me my favorite Ash ever, it will always be Army of Darkness. A cynical, grumpy motherfucker that does not care. This, it's the birth of that, and then the show, it's happiness of that,
Yeah. Because I don't want to get too much into Army of Darkness. Lance and I are going to cover it fairly shortly. He has one line, I think, like chicks feeding him grapes or something.
First you want to kiss
And
me.
he says
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, go.
No, go ahead.
First
Go
you
ahead.
want to kill me, now you want to kiss me? He goes, blow.
Blow.
He's sitting there lounging, his shirt's open. It's fucking great. He's on the little couch. Ugh.
We're going to address it in our Army of Darkness episode, but I have to ask you now because we're talking about it, but does he mean a blowjob? Because I always saw it that way.
Well, I think technically means like piss off, technically. But as my whole life, I always thought it was, give one to me. Yes. So
that's the way I always read it.
I mean, I think it's probably, it walks the line so that it could have easy deniability. But yes, I mean, yes, because the whole thing is, Commissioner Sugar Baby, and it's just pillow talk. It's pillow talk, baby.
Yeah. It's basically Ash being Andrew Dice Clay.
Yes.
Oh, first you want to kiss me, then you want to kill me. Blow. Oh. I'll always remember the scene in Army of Darkness. And then I promise this is the last we speak about Army of Darkness because we're going to do an episode on it. But it's actually a very fucking funny scene where he has to memorize these lines. He's like blah blah blah. Bring, he's such a moron. So you didn't feel that in Evil Dead 2. You didn't think Ash was a moron, but in part 3 and ongoing, he's a bit of a dunce. Yeah.
And I think that's obviously on purpose.
For comedic effect. Definitely.
We're talking about it now. I always thought he was a little bit of a dunce in part 2 until this conversation right now. Because you're right. I just watched it and there's nothing besides slapstick stuff happening, but that's not necessarily
that he's a moron.
Yeah, he's a movie.
He's losing his mind. I mean, dude, he's stuck in there with these spirits busting his fucking balls. He's losing his fucking marble. He's just, he just beheaded his girlfriend. And then, everything he goes through when he's alone would drive anybody insane. But yeah, I guess, when they got the Army of Darkness, they just thought, it'll be funnier.
Well, Evil Dead 2 is a perfect movie. I love it. It's a part of my life. And John, it looks like you feel the same.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same. Some movies you watch, I watch it in 87 and so forth and so forth and so forth because I had on VHS and DVD, then Blu-ray. And some movies you watch, they're great when you first see them. And then fucking 20 plus, whatever the fuck, years later, you watch them again and they're still great, but even greater. So for me, watching Evil Dead 2 today, I just realized that movie is just top of the food chain, man. I hate saying it. I say it, I think, in every fucking episode, but they don't make movies like this anymore. That's our spiel. What about you guys and dolls? Evil Dead 2, please, for the love of Christ who died for my sins, tell me you've seen it. If you have not seen it, well, you shouldn't be watching the show if you haven't seen it. So, I'll get the baby oil and douche, spank you guys and dolls. What do you think? You love it, hate it, better than the original, not as good as the original? Has it aged very well, like Lance and I think? Boomstick those fucking comments below and let us know. All right?
John.
All right, my man.
Until next episode, Army of Darkness, right? We're going to say that?
I guess we're saying it. Yes, it will be Army of Darkness.
Groovy.
Groovy.